Welcome if you're new, welcome back if you are subscribed, part of the fam already. As y'all can see from the title below, this will be a glitch in the matrix video, so stick around if you are interested. Let's get right into it. This is one of my earliest memories. So I was probably between the ages of 2 and 3, and I lived in a ranch style home in a nice neighborhood. The only people at my home were me and my mom. My sister was at school and my dad was working. It was a nice day out, probably around noon. It was hot, so we had the front door open with the screen door locked. I'm sitting on the couch in the living room, which is only 2 or 3 feet away from the door. I'm playing with my toy cash register. So now that the scene is set, let's get into it. I look up from my toy and I see a man standing behind the screen door. I don't remember him walking up the driveway. He was just suddenly there. He's wearing a police outfit and I'm confused, and he just kind of smiles at me. I should mention that I wasn't scared at all. There was a policeman at the screen door. In my young mind, there was nothing off about that, so I called for my mom and said that there was a man at the door. My mom was in the kitchen, which was attached to the living room, so it didn't take her long to get there. When she walked into the room, I could immediately tell something was very, very off. Once she saw the man, she paused. She then power walked straight for me, picked me up, and then ran into the hallway. He couldn't see us from there. I remember being held close to her chest and being confused. She looked extremely frightened. We stayed up there for a while, and eventually when we came back out, the man was gone. The memory ends there. Nearly 2 decades later, I still don't have a clue what happened that day. A few years ago, I brought it up to my mom, but she just kind of brushed off the question. I didn't push it though. Now I'm just afraid to ask. I still think about it from time to time, and I think it's insane. Will I remember that moment, the texture of the couch, the toy, the policeman, his smile, and my mother's face? I don't remember anything else. I also don't remember another memory that well, being that young. The moment was so intense that I don't think I'll ever forget it. About 10 years ago, I was returning home from a road trip with my 2 friends. I received a phone call from my parents asking me when I would be arriving, and I explained to them that we were about 25 minutes away. It was a full moon out, and we could see the reflection of the moon from the lake below us, and other than that, the road was completely empty. Suddenly, everything went dark in the car. No lights from the dash, no gauges, no headlights on the road. Music also stopped. Everything restarted. Even the CD we were listening to started from the beginning. There was now a vehicle pulled over by the police about a half mile up in front of us that wasn't there a split second ago. I assume I had just dozed off for a second and it was just late. I thought it was still quite peculiar though. About a minute after, the driver of the car turned the music all the way down and said, "Did anyone else just see that happen?" My friend in the passenger seat sat up abruptly and exclaimed, "I thought I just fell asleep." We then realized that the clock in the car was reading an hour later than it just had been a minute before. To keep ourselves from freaking out, we decided that the car had possibly had a momentary electric failure and reset the clock. But when we arrived home 25 minutes later, we were 1 hour late. I am missing 1 hour of my life, and to this day, I still have no idea how it happened. That's crazy. When I was a teenager, I had 2 really intense dreams in one night. The first one was about an old friend I had met online, calling me to say that she'd broken up with her boyfriend. The second dream was finding my friend's unalive body floating in her bathtub. I didn't think anything of it until I logged online that evening, and the friend from my first dream came up telling me that her boyfriend broke up with her. I immediately asked her if I could call her, and she said no. I remember thinking that it meant something, like I could change it. Not long after that, my phone rang, and it was my friend from the second story. I completely freaked out, but I was talking to her like normal. We were just talking about school and stuff up until I realized I heard a splash in the background. I asked her, "Are you in the tub?" When she said yes, I felt like my heart had stopped. I asked her, "What did you do?" She didn't answer me right away, but after a very long pause, she told me she had taken an entire bottle of pills and chased it with mushrooms and vodka. She had gotten scared waiting for it to hit her, so she called me thinking if she heard a familiar voice, she'd feel calm. I hung up and I called 911. By the time they had got there, she was unconscious but alive. Today, she's a mom of a beautiful little girl and she's okay. I personally believe in premonitions, and I think that they can come to you as dreams. So if that's true, that was a premonition. That wasn't a glitch in the matrix. My grandmother passed when I was young, maybe 8 years old. When I was around 6 years old, I had a dream that I was hanging out with her and we were talking and catching up. She stood up in the dream to leave. I begged her not to go, and I asked her when I would see her again. She said nothing to me, but she pointed at a calendar and circled a date. I remember the date when I woke up. It was several months from now, and I told my mom about my dream because she was always interested in that kind of stuff. Several months go by, and the date of my dream is approaching within the next few days. My cousin gets unalived in a freak car accident, and my parents fly across the country to be with my family. They were going to be gone over the date that I had in my dream. My mom, being very superstitious, she makes me promise not to leave the house until that day is over. I agree, no big deal. My parents were going to be gone. What did I need to leave for anyway? The day of my dream arrives, and my friend calls me and asks me if I want to ride up the street with him. I say no thanks. It's late and I'm just going to head to bed. I get a call from my friend later on that night saying that he had been in a terrible car accident and the passenger side of his car was smashed to hell. That would have been me had I rode with him. What? Okay, that one is scary because you probably weren't gonna make it. If you were in that car and got into that accident, that was your grandma telling you that that's when you was gonna see her again, at them pearly gates. I saw my female doppelganger once. We were walking past each other in the train station. We both turned around and looked at each other. After we passed each other, we both jerked our heads and scrunched up our faces like, do I know you? We gave a surprised wide-eyed look to each other, like, that's pretty weird. Then another slightly more exaggerated face that was even weirder, followed by an audible, what the fuck? I then turned around and hurried away with one last, what the fuck was that look at my doppelganger as they scurried away. If a bystander saw it, they would have thought it was scripted. It was very weird. I was laying in my bed with the door open. I hear something move in the house. I was alone, and I get nervous. I was staring at the ends of the hallways, but I just assumed it was my dog scurrying from one room to another. The sound sounded just like him scratching. Then he emerges and I watch him go into one room and lay down. I think nothing of it and I go back to reading. I glance up and 3 seconds later he is walking down the hallway from where the sound originated. It's like he had teleported back there because I had not heard any other movement since. Needless to say, I lost my shit. So I just read that deja vu is just your brain misremembering things that are currently happening to you in the moment. I don't think that's the case for me. Someone will start talking to me or something will start happening and I can finish the entire sentence and tell them exactly what's about to happen. The worst one, the one that tore me to pieces, was when I predicted that my girlfriend was about to break up with me. Whenever she was about to speak, I would say, please don't say, insert the next thing that she's gonna say. She started to get really angry over time and told me to stop doing that. It was devastating because I knew it was going to happen and I couldn't stop it. All I could do was watch as my heart hopelessly got ripped out from my chest. When I was about 8 years old, my grandparents was taking me on a trip. We were going to Australia. Suddenly on the highway, the words, "Dad is going to crash the car," left my mouth. Just after my granddad said that I shouldn't say stuff like that, my dad hit a slippery spot on the road and made the car do a 360. I can't remember why I said it. And when I come to think of it, there was a lottery back when I was in kindergarten. They called a name that wasn't mine and I went up there. My parents said that I didn't win. I told them I knew that already. But next time I would win. I won 4 to 5 times in a row after that. This happened to me about 2 weeks ago. It was hot and there was a storm approaching, so I decided I would jump in the pool real quick. And I would be out before it starts to hail. After a minute or so under the water, I come up for air and I see 2 eagles floating there. They're just floating above me, not moving at all. It was like time had stopped. They didn't even sway a little. Not left, not right, back and forth, nothing. I took another dive underwater for a while, and when I came back up, they were in another part of the sky, but still not moving. Just floating there. That could very well be a glitch in the Matrix, but you know they say some of these birds, they're not really birds. Food for Theezy.
Oh, she thought she ate that.
That is not food for thought. Shut up. I had just finished my last class at university this day, and I went to grab a sandwich from a sandwich shop. While I was there, I had this strange feeling, basically a voice in my head saying, buy a second sandwich. I had this odd feeling that I was going to need a second sandwich. I really felt weird about it. But I listened to the voice and I decided to buy it. So I ate one of the 2 sandwiches that I had just purchased, and then I exited the building. I'm walking to my car along the streets and through the parking garage when I pass a bus stop. At the bus stop, there is this one guy standing there. He was most likely one of the homeless people that often hung around the school. It really wasn't unusual to see them there. As I'm walking by, the guy looks me straight in the eye and asks, "Hey, is there any way I could have that sandwich?" I was a little stunned, but at the same time, I felt like I had been preparing for this situation. I almost immediately handed him the sandwich. I said to him, "Yeah, sure, it's all yours." And the guy was extremely happy. I just walked to my car after that. It was a very weird experience. If I had any other excuse for buying 2 sandwiches, I would have just chalked it up to me being very generous. But I distinctly recall that voice in my head, that uncomfortable feeling of being told to purchase a second sandwich. It was kind of demanding. And then I had seriously contemplated just throwing the sandwich away because I knew that I didn't want it. It's crazy to think that we're all sort of connected in some kind of way through this universe. Did his thoughts somehow affect mine? I had just come back from working a 15-hour shift. It was around 10 p.m. I hadn't worked a double in a while, so I was very tired. I was on a 91 freeway in California at the Atlantic Avenue exit before the 710 freeway. I was fighting sleepiness a few minutes ago, and I told myself I can stay awake. I can do this. I can make my exit. It's only a few more miles until I'm home. I dozed off. My internal clock kicked in, and I whipped my head back to wake myself up. What I then saw shocked me more than anything. I was sitting inside of my garage, still in the car. I looked at the clock and 15 minutes had passed, so I dozed off for 15 minutes. Although it felt like no less than a second, I managed to drive myself home for 2 to 3 miles, off the exit, past 2 lights, punch in a code, enter my public garage, park my car, and wake myself up. I got out the car and looked around, making sure I didn't run anything or anyone over. Yep, no blood, no brains, no evidence, body tissue, or anything. I'm clear. It was on my mind for a few days, so I followed up with the news every day to make sure that there were no fatal hit and runs in my area. Moral to the story, do not drive tired or sleepy. This experience didn't happen to me. It happened to my sister. My mother's grandma died before my sister was born, so she never had a chance to meet her, which I thought was a shame because she was such a lovely soul. One day my sister was playing in the backyard in a sand pit. My mom just so happened to glance over at my sister, who was 3 years old when this happened. She sees her looking and talking to nothing. It almost feels like she's having a conversation with somebody. My mom wasn't fazed though. It was somewhat normal for young kids to have imaginary friends. They exhibit this type of behavior, but nonetheless, she still went over to ask who she was talking to and what was going on. So my mom proceeds to sit next to her in the sand pit, and she asks her, "Who are you talking to?" My sister replies, "I'm talking to Nana." My mom thought it was a bit strange because Nana was on the porch with my mom drinking her coffee. My mom decided to entertain her. She then says, "What do you mean? Nana's sitting over there drinking coffee with me." My sister, not really looking at my mom, just replies with, "Not my Nana, your Nana." At this point, my mom is shocked, stunned. She gets up and hurries back into the house, grabs her photo album, takes a picture out of her Nana wearing her favorite dress, and walks back to my sister. She asks my sister to explain what her Nana looked like and what she was wearing. My sister described everything down to the T. Keep in mind that she was never shown any of these photos. I was alive and actually met my great-great-grandma, but I couldn't even describe her with half the accuracy. My mom was stunned and never even showed her the picture. I remember a time when I was at the store and I heard my boyfriend's ringtone go off on my phone. I went to answer it, but I couldn't find my phone. I then realized I had forgotten it at home. It had been plugged up to charge. When I got home, I saw that he called me at the exact same time I heard my ringtone going off. How could I have known that if my phone was at home? This is nothing scary, but when I was a kid, I think I saw a ghost. I had this figure just stare at me when I was in bed. It just lingered in my doorway. It was kind of like a white shadow. It even stayed there after I rearranged my whole entire bedroom. It was there for several months. I told my mom and friends about it. Finally, one day, one of my friends told me to just ask it what it wants, a simple question that I had never even thought of. So the night that I decided to ask, it didn't show up. I never saw it again. I was about 7 or 8 at the time. I'm 31 now, still wondering what that was. I was home alone on a stormy night, and I had had a migraine for a few hours. I was laying down in bed and I passed out. When I woke up, my 250-pound desk was moved across the room. It was near the door now. My issue with this is that I'm not even 120 pounds. So how could it have moved, even if I was sleepwalking? I searched the house frantically, hoping that nobody was there. But I also needed an explanation. Nothing was found. The alarm was still on and my heart was racing. Eventually, I did come to the conclusion that I just sleptwalked and moved my desk. My mother went to the doctor and she needed to do some breathing tests for her lungs. I want to add that she never smoked a day in her life. I ended up going with her though. She needed to breathe very hard through a small tube with a clip on her nose in different ways for 1 hour. She told me it really hurt and that she felt dizzy. After the first few minutes, she started to cry because she said it felt like the scariest thing she had ever done. However, it needed to be done, so we continued. She manned up a little bit. Something like 45 minutes into it, she did what I can only describe as a hard punch breath. And it was like she died instantly. Her skin turned pale, her eyes looked empty, and she was not breathing, no movements, reacting, or nothing. It felt like more than 3 minutes had gone by, but it was probably something like 1 minute. Suddenly, she came back to life, normal skin, bright eyes, and very confused. We paused for like 5 minutes and then they continued to do the tests. After doing all the breathing tests and the doctor left the room, she told me what she had saw. She said she saw the doctor and herself above her body for a few seconds. She then looked up and saw her mother, my grandmother, who was already dead for 20 plus years. My grandmother then pushed her back into her body and disappeared. She then stated she didn't connect with her body immediately after being pushed. It took a few seconds. She said that she was trying to move her body, but her motor skills were not working. She didn't feel anything. Then suddenly she connected again, and that's when she woke up. That is crazy. It sounds like she had an outer body experience or something. I'm not sure. This was a lot. I don't even know how to explain it. Okay, y'all already know the vibes though. That's pretty much it for this one. If you like this video, like I said, please definitely give it a thumbs up so I know you like it. Leave anything in the comments and share it. Share it with people you know like this content. And if they don't, you know, still share it anyway. They might not know what they like yet, okay? Anyway, y'all already know the vibes. I love y'all so much. And I'm gonna see y'all in my next one. Bye. Very weird experience. And if I had what the hell I had?